Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for Popcorn Frights Wicked Weekend special presentation of Benny Loves You. I hope you guys had an amazing time watching the film. We have the director, Karl Holt here, writer-director of the film, as well as a cinematographer. And I'm gonna give Karl the opportunity to introduce everyone that's on the Zoom Q&A with us. So are you ready to introduce everyone, Karl?
I am, yes. I'm Karl. This is John Bowe. He's down as cinematographer on the film, but in reality, the crew of this film was so small that John basically did everything along with me. This was a very small production. Yeah, and cinematography was a very good title.
We couldn't hear John. Like we saw his lips move, but we couldn't hear him.
I was just saying, whatever had to be done, you would do. I mean, even if it was literally making dinner for someone, you would go out and do that. Whatever had to be done, we would do. So.
All right.
So this is John. Next on my little screen here, we've got James, who plays Ron, the Git in the movie. Hello, James.
You mean Ron the Git, not James the Git, I
hope. Both.
Maybe you do. You might do by the end of this.
Yes. We have Anthony Styles, the effervescent Anthony, who played Bad Cop in the film. Unfortunately, you didn't get a real name, but you didn't deserve it. So
I think Bad Cop is a good enough name for me. I quite like it.
Yes.
My mother's thinking of calling me it now.
And last but not least, we have Claire, who played Dawn in the movie. And Claire is wicked as fuck. So hello, Claire.
So Karl, this is your first feature film. What made you decide to go and tell a story about a killer doll bunny, a bunny doll, or bear? Bear.
Yeah, it's like a plush toy. It's like nobody really knows what he is. We say bear, but it could be anything. This is actually based on a short film that I made back in 2006 called Eddie Loves You. And I've made a lot of short films since then, but that one probably hit the mark more with festival audiences. And the one good thing about making a comedy, I mean, I've been to festivals since with some short films I've made, but you never really get a reaction. You know, even if you make something scary, the audience kind of sit there and you might see a jump here and there. And then you get a polite clap at the end. But the good thing about a comedy horror with an audience is you really get to see a proper reaction, and you get to see whether your film's working or not. And I always thought that would be fun to take that idea that I did as a short and turn that into my first feature. And it was about resources as well. What did I have? You know, whenever you're an independent filmmaker, you know, starting out, you don't have a lot of money or any, and you just have to say, what are the resources that I've got? You know, I couldn't really go and set something in a Gothic mansion. So this was like, well, I can go and shoot at my friend's house. I can get a little teddy bear made. So that's where it came from. The irony of it is I never really get to see this in an audience with anybody with the lovely COVID striking. So we got to see it in New York, which was great. But we have a UK premiere coming up, and it's worth noting that only Anthony from the cast here has seen the film. And the rest of them are waiting for the UK premiere. But now that which is going to be shown in Leicester Square in London has now also obviously been pushed online. So everybody will be watching it on their laptops, unfortunately. That's the way of the world.
Now, as you know, writing and directing your first feature film is not hard enough. You're also the star of the film. What were some of the challenges you faced being the lead in the film, as well as, you know, directing and writing?
Well, I mean, I guess the way I looked at it was that Benny was the lead, and I'm just kind of a wimpy character that enables him to do what he does. And I've got a small character arc, but yeah, I just kind of had no choice in that matter. It's a question, you know, this film is you know, been financed and produced by myself with all my own money. there's nobody else involved. And so that really was a choice of that. It was the only way that we could go, was that I would act in it. And I haven't acted in a film in about 15 years. So the first day we turned up on set, I don't think I'd ever, the challenges with it was just hard. It was hard work. We were up filming 3, 4 in the morning, and then the next day, 7 a.m., some actors would arrive and we'd film again. And we were doing so much stuff, like organizing the catering, moving the lights around. So, on one minute I'm in my pajamas in the field with a HMI light, jumping over the fence, putting it in the field, and then running back and going, what am I saying? What's my line? Okay, that's my line. Right, set the line. Right, okay, move. And it was pretty much like that. Claire probably more than anybody can attest to 2, 3 in the morning evenings with just me, John, and my mum on boom mic, can't you?
Yeah. Your mum was a major player in the whole production. She was catering. She was boom guy. She was sad. Like she was all over it.
Yeah, she was holding Benny in some of the shots, running around. So yeah, everybody that was on set kind of chipped in. Credit where it's due. We did have some days where we had more crew members. We hired some makeup effects artists for the bit where they're all in the office being killed. And we had my friend Mark turn up on some of the days where there was a lot of actors at the house. But when it was just scenes with, say, like me and Claire, or me and the police, it tended to be just me, John, and my mum, or maybe one other. So
the 3 of us.
Yeah, the crew is like, its core is like 3 or 4 people that made this. So the hardest part was just getting through that. It was a nightmare. And I think, you spread yourself that thinly and the film can suffer in areas. So it would be awesome if you get to do this again, that I can just stop doing all those other things that I shouldn't be doing. I'm supposed to be acting in the film, but I'm taking calls from the effects artist that can't turn up, his car's broken down, or actors are rescheduling, and this is happening in the middle of scenes, and I'm the one that has to deal with all that. So yeah, it was a nightmare, but it's done. We can all
nightmare that made for a brilliant movie
that you haven't seen.
No, I've seen it.
Anthony's the only one that's seen it, and he's been paid a lot of money to say it's great.
I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of the film. I was dying in the movie. Now, Claire, Anthony, and James, how did you all get involved with the film? What was the audition process? Were you friends with Carl, or did you
be nice? James, be nice.
Do you know what? I've got absolutely no idea. I can't remember now.
It's 5 years ago.
I must have auditioned.
You did.
I don't remember doing it.
It was a video audition, and I sent you 2 scenes to perform.
Okay.
So one of them was your Amy recollection,
right,
where you were getting all a bit teary.
Oh,
and the other one was where you meet Jack in the office for the first time and sort of save him from Ron. So you did those 2 bits to the phone, and you did it with a cold, but you still somehow shined. Still happens.
Very, very good.
Typical British weather. Of course I had a cold. Woo, woo, woo.
Yeah, that was good.
I don't think I auditioned because we'd worked together before. I did a film with Karl called Broadcast, which is a short, shudder to think, about 2004, 5, something like that.
8.
8, okay.
Yes.
I can't remember last week. I'm going to sound so crawly right now. I think is brilliant, largely because I'm in it, but also no, I think it's a terrific film. It's online. Go find it. It's really good. I've no idea what the ending means, and I had the script, but I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was a great story, incredibly well done on a budget of tuppence halfpenny. And I then spent the next 4 or 5 years badgering him to give me a part in something else because I'm shameless. and eventually he decided to shut me up by giving me a part in something else. So there was he just
You had the
emailed me.
longest journey, James.
What, James? What was your response? What was your reaction when Carl came to you? Go, I have something for you. It's going to be an amazing film about a killer doll. Like, how did you react to that? Did you think he was joking, or did you think he was serious? Or?
I never think Carl's joking. No, I assumed he was serious because he's mad enough to be serious about it. No, I think you did send me the script quite early on, didn't you?
Yes, and you said, I really enjoyed it, but I don't know what it all means. Then I tried to really sort of clear up the subtext of the film and what I was really sort of trying to achieve, and then you were like, well, okay, we'll find out when we see it.
You know, I came to the realization some years ago that the reason I have friends is because they remember my life for me and I don't. So I'm really glad you remember all this, because I have no recollection of it at all. My co-author's the same. He keeps telling me what's happened in my life, and I'm going, oh, well, glad you're paying attention. It's great. Yeah, I do recall reading the script, and I do recall liking it, but not really understanding what the hell was going on. But I also loved the part of Ron, because he's such a complete twat. And I love playing complete arseholes. They're just so much fun. The gittier they are, the better.
Carl, you know the film has had a long road when the cast can't remember how they got involved with it.
This was I don't know if you know this, but this film was shot in 2014, summer of 2014, and then in April 2015 we hired some offices and we filmed the second half of it. So I tried to, obviously being a self-produced film, we thought 2 locations maximum. So I spent from 2015 till end of 2019 doing all the visual effects and editing it, you know, putting it all together and doing the soundtrack and the music and everything. And so it's been 4 or 5 years in post-production, and now we are all older.
I'm not older, I'm getting younger.
What's interesting about going through a process like that takes so many years is now you're kind of prepared when the world hits like something where there's a pandemic and everything is kind of put on pause, and you kind of have to wait to finish what you know. There's a big difference between waiting 6 months and 6 years to finish a movie, but there's still that.
Yeah, there was an interesting moment when the pandemic all started, and everybody was like, I'm finding this really difficult because I can't go anywhere. But for me, you know, I mean, I quit my job and then spent the last 4 years going out into the shed in the garden to edit the movie. So for me, I'm like, my life is absolutely no different in the pandemic. I get up in the morning, I go into the office, and I come back into the house at 11 p.m. And that's what I've done for the last 4 years. So weirdly for me, I was like, yeah, whatever, pandemic's not affecting me. And then the film comes out and then nobody can bloody show it. So it really did get to me really bit in the arse.
Because because the film started doing its festival run last year. In 2019, I believe. It started doing a festival run. And then this pandemic hit where it kind of really put the festival run on hold, on pause.
We had to pull out of a lot of festivals, and there was and obviously now this is all online, but there was a moment where, because all the festivals were going online, and this is a difficult time for distributors and sales agents, because they're like, well, you know, film can get pirated, we can't sell the movie, and there was a lot of hesitation about going into online festivals. So there was a whole period where we had festivals lined up and we had to pull out of them all. So the film was it's been in limbo for 6-7 months. But now things have changed slightly. People have got their I wouldn't say got their act together, but it's taken a long time for people to, I mean, you as well as a festival director, I'm sure, were like, what the hell are we going to do? And it takes time for new avenues to open up, to find new ways to do things and to do them, you know, safely and get a bit of privacy in there or copyright protection. And I think it took a while for that to happen. And now they're saying, okay, you know, you can't sit on the film forever. So they're taking a chance now and putting it out into festivals.
All right. What I love, as I mentioned before, obviously isn't the first time a movie's been made about a killer toy, but what I absolutely love is in the final act of how crazy things get with the toys or toy or however you want to say it without spoiling
Yes.
too much for anyone who sees who hasn't seen the movie. But that is one of the most memorable endings, like final acts in a film of this nature. I was just on the floor. I was
Oh,
just
thank you so much.
and anyone who
That's
hasn't
why it took 4 years to make.
And what was that process like? I mean, obviously there's some CGI in there too. Is there?
Yeah, Benny is all CGI
Right.
throughout the whole movie. I mean, if you see him just stood there like this, there's a
Where
chance
your mom's
that
holding him?
yeah, there's a chance that if he's just doing this, there's a chance
Yeah.
he's the real bear. But anytime he's moving, it's all CGI. And that process, I thought, oh, it'll take me maybe a year to do this. But as it went on, and there was another thing as well, because what happened is we got 4 Bennies made, and because the filming was, well, I said there's only a couple of us doing it, and I noticed that as the filming went on, his jaw was getting more like he was getting used and battered, and I was like, I can't use this, so I ended up having to remove whenever he was a real puppet, we had to remove him and replace him with a digital one. So the time that I was going to put into the effects just went up and up and up. And but talking about that final sequence, we shot like a load of locked off shots in the kitchen, which were backplates, which were all empty. And I started off the process of doing that final sequence of putting a digital toy in. But then it was like, by the time you do, because obviously if you're anybody that's worked with CG, you have to match the camera angle, you have to match the lighting. And then if the teddy bear runs across, say, a chair, you've got to create something fake shadow that runs across the chair. And I got like 4 or 5 shots into it. And I thought, this is going to take me forever. I'd actually be better off building the entire kitchen in 3D. Because then once I've done that, I can put the bear wherever I want, add the other robots, and I can do what I want with the camera. So weirdly, in post-production, it freed me up to do a bit more than what was on paper originally. So I built the kitchen as a 3D space in 3ds Max, and then I was like, right, now I can have a lot more fun with this than what we originally shot. But I think that sequence alone took me 6 months to do.
And then I want to ask John, what were some of the most challenging shots you had for the film as a cinematographer? You may want to get closer to the mic, though.
Most challenging shots. Dollying in the camera, focusing at the same time. We had to do that many times, particularly with Claire. We had a difficult shot with Claire to do on the sofa. Where the camera's pushing in. Is that the bit where was Claire started to do her crying bit? Was that the bit?
Yeah, so that was really unfair on Claire because she had to do that bit where she gets teary. We didn't have a focus puller.
That was like my first scene of the whole film. Yeah.
God.
We really threw you into it, didn't we?
They were like, come in. Yeah, I do remember that was my first day, and you were doing like focus pulling and the moving at the same time. It was amazing. It was amazing.
That was very difficult. I mean, the cameras now, though, they autofocus for you. They can track people's faces, but with the camera we had, we couldn't do anything like that. So pushing the camera in, focusing at the same time is difficult. Very difficult. And of course, Claire's doing a very emotional scene because she's got to tear up each time I do it.
And presumably anything to do with that bloody dog.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We had a dog where we were filming as well. There was a dog running around.
Before we end up this Q&A, oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, they say don't work with animals or children, and yet,
And you gave me both.
Yeah.
And toys.
Before we end out this Q&A, I want to ask the cast, Claire, Anthony, James, what were some of your favorite experiences working on the film?
Oh, is Anthony gone? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Sorry, my battery just went a bit funny.
So, Anthony, in case you didn't hear me, I just want to ask the cast, you, Claire, James, what were some of your favorite experiences working on the film with Karl?
I think favorite is probably the wrong word to use.
Or most memorable. So your most memorable.
I mean, I think the thing was actually, and this is not kissing ass here, but working with Karl was actually really fantastic, because when he sort of says, oh, well, I did this and I did the other and I did what, Karl did almost everything. And not only did he do almost everything, if there was something that he couldn't do or felt that he couldn't do, his mom
stepped in. Yeah.
No, well, not even that. He would learn how to do it. He would get a manual or get it on the computer. He would learn how to do it. And just because of the constraints, the financial constraints, he would just learn how to do something. And you're thinking, how the hell has he come up with this? And that was amazing working in that way. But also the fact that, like you said before, directing it and acting in it and holding lights and doing everything else, telling us what to do. And also, certainly, I don't know about the others, but myself and Darren, who were the two cops, were very, very naughty, badly behaved actors. And he had to keep sort of putting his foot down to stop us messing about, because we kept on messing about. And he had a very short period to actually do the filming. So our filming went on for hours and hours and hours. And if I remember rightly, we actually had to sleep over a couple of nights because we were working so late. But it was fantastic working with both him and John. I have to say, it was great.
I think Karl does himself. I think Karl does himself a great disservice. He's actually a much better actor than he thinks he is. I was very impressed by times. Sorry?
I said you slept over a few times as well, didn't you? Claire did as well.
We weren't going to talk about that, love. Aren't you glad you invited me? But what the most memorable? Oh Lord! I think the most memorable thing about it was the fact that, given how stressed it could have been, it really wasn't. It could have been an enormously stressful. I mean, I've been on shoots with minimal crews where people have been climbing up the walls and generally making life hell for everybody else, and it wasn't at all like that. It was hugely enjoyable. It was great fun, despite the bloody dog, who, more or less had to be nailed to me. Seriously, I have never gripped hold of anything so tightly in my life. I was, as this damn dog tried to crawl over my shoulder and escape. I think I had a piece of luncheon meat sellotaped behind my ear at one point.
Yes, you did. It's the only way it would stay in your arms.
Oh, the glamour of showbiz. And how did you spend your evening? Well,
Getting licked by a dog.
And luncheon meat that was sellotaped to my head.
And finally, Claire, what were some of your most memorable moments on the set?
I think so. I stayed in this house where we were filming everything. In that first, as Karl was saying, in that first kind of block, I stayed with Karl and John and Karl's mum and Karl's friend for like a week. I think, was it a week? I mean, that first kind of block of shooting.
Yeah.
And I got there and I met Benny. And I saw this kind of toy, and I was like, "What is this?" Absolutely insane. And it was mostly night shoots, as far as I can remember.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. It was the summertime, and so during the day, I'd be like wandering around in the beautiful countryside, and then at night, all hell would break loose, and I'd be chased around the house by this teddy bear, and we were like, there was visual effects, and there was one scene, I think, where I'm like stabbing a pillow or something, and there's feathers. I remember that. The whole thing was just kind of wild. At night, everything just sort of came alive and got super weird,
which basically describes the film.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, it was kind of what you see in the film, as far as I can tell, is kind of similar to what it was like filming it. Well, it was really funny.
I want to thank everyone for joining us for the Q&A. And I want to wish Carl the best and most best of luck and most success with the release of the
Thank
film.
you. Thank
Hopefully,
you.
it's
Can I just say
at
one
us
more
and-
thing before we go?
Yes.
And that was just if and only if anybody watching this enjoyed the movie, could you please leave us a rating or on IMDb or Letterboxd? It's like one of the hardest things is to get words out about little independent films like
Right.
this. And yeah, it would mean so much to us if you could just post something on Twitter or just tell people about it. Because yeah, that's the only way something's going to come from it and we can move on to something else.
All right. You heard it, folks. The cast of Benny Loves You, the filmmaker, the cinematographer. Good luck with the film, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.